Hello everyone. Today I'm going to start with a new topic, that is reviewing major policies in India. And the first policy which I am going to talk about is the education policy. If we talk about the introduction to the education policy, education, as we know, it's a complex system with many interconnected and interrelated subsystems, and various stakeholders are there. And any decisions taken on one component at one level of education brings changes to other sections or other components, and the interconnectedness this interconnectedness requires policy and decision makers to ensure the coherent and consistent education policy and strategic framework which are in place from a sector and a system perspective. So emerging challenges such as rapid industrialization, digitalization, increasing inequality, and disruptions caused by climatic changes, pandemics, and conflicts demand that countries should develop resilient and sustainable policies and strategies on which to build efficient, relevant, and transformative education system. What is education policy? If you look into the details of what is education policy, it refers to certain rules and principles that govern the operation of education system. And in the process of formulating education policies, many crucial factors have to be taken into considerations. This include the pedagogical methodologies, resource mobilization, curriculum content, and the possible impact of the policy on different groups. So according to Taylor, there are three major aspects in education policy. These begin with the context. It refers to the anecdotes and so it refers to the antecedents and pressures leading to the development of a specific policy. Text which refers to the content of the policy itself, that what are we delivering, what would be the text, and then consequences if policy texts are open to different interpretation by practitioners, then this is also likely to resist indifferences in implementation. Now, the importance, if we talk about the importance of education policy, of course, education policy plays a very pivotal role in shaping the future of any country, because through education, you talk about knowledge production, you talk about a subsistent level of generating human resources and human capital in the society. It lays a foundation for the development of a nation, providing quality education to its citizens, thereby strengthening the human resources. It also set education policy is considered to be a set of guidelines and rules which has been established by the government to ensure that education is accessible, equitable, and of high quality. And in this article, we will discuss the importance of education policy in shaping the future and explore some of the key elements of effective education policy. If we talk about education policy, it is indeed crucial for the development of a country in several ways. First and foremost, it promotes economic growth by providing necessary skills and knowledge to the workforce. A well-educated workforce can drive innovation, increase productivity, and attract foreign investment. This in turn leads to job creation and economic growth. Secondly, education policy is essential for social development, and it promotes social cohesion and stability by reducing inequality, promoting diversity, and fostering a sense of community. Education can also help to reduce poverty, crime, and social unrest by providing individuals with the skills and knowledge they need to succeed. And thirdly, education policy is crucial for personal growth. It provides individuals with the opportunity to learn, grow, and develop their skills and talents, enhance their capacities and capabilities, increases their knowledge, give them wisdom and experience also. So education can help individuals achieve their full potential, increase their self-esteem, and improve the quality of life. There are certain key elements of education policy. Effective policy, education policy must be designed to meet the needs of all the learners, and it should be equitable, it should be accessible, and of high quality. In fact, some of the key elements of effective education policy policies are, first of all, curriculum development. The curriculum should be designed in order to meet the needs and expectations of the learners, of the students, regardless of their background, ability or interests. It should be relevant, it should be engaging and interesting and even challenging to promote learning and development. It should encourage amongst the student a need, a desire to acquire and to imbibe knowledge. Teacher training, teachers play a very crucial role in the education system. Effective education policy should provide the teachers with the necessary training and support to deliver high quality education to their students. So they should be provided, they should be given particular skills, training, pedagogical techniques, tools in order to enhance their quality in terms of delivering and disseminating knowledge. Then infrastructure development, access to quality education requires adequate infrastructure. Uh, Effective education policies should ensure that schools are well equipped with modern facilities and adequate resources to support training and development. Inclusive education, effective education policy should also ensure that all the learners, including those coming from the vulnerable sections or those person or those who are differently able individuals or any kind of disabilities, or have access to quality education, and it should be more inclusive in its approach and diverse and provide support to students with special needs also. And then assessment and evaluation, effective education policy should have a robust system for assessing and evaluating student learning, and this ensures that students are making progress and the education system is meeting its objectives. Now we will discuss about the trajectory of education policy in India starting from the British time until the policy which is of 2020, which was more of a recent phenomena. If you look into the British education and the British rule, the introduction of Western education was indeed British a gift, I would say, an event of great historical significance for the emergence of such a kind of education system in our country. British colonial rule brought with its the concept of modern state, a modern economy and a modern education system, and this education system was first developed in three presidencies: Bombay, Calcutta and Madras. So by linking advancement and entrance in government service to academic institutions, a colonial rule contributed to the legacy of an education system geared to preserving the position and prerogatives of the more privileged one. In the early 1900s, the Indian National Congress called for national education, placing an emphasis on technical and vocational training. In 1920, Congress also initiated a boycott of government-aided and government-controlled schools and founded several national schools and colleges. So these failed as the rewards of the British-style education were so great that the boycott was largely ignored. But however, if you look into the time of the colonial period, during the time of the Britishers, the Charter of 1698 clearly stated that it was a duty of the English Minister of Region to give education along with the primary duty of spreading the gospel. But the East India Company had realized the political significance of a policy of religious neutrality and therefore refrained from carrying out any of the directions the Charter of which the Charter of 1698 were addressing. However, the company encouraged educational activities by establishing schools with liberal grant-in-aids, and then St. Mary's School was established in Madrasa in 1715, followed by the establishment of two more schools in Bombay, that is in 1731, and in Calcutta, which were opened. So in 1718, a charity school in Bombay and another in 1731 in Calcutta were opened, and in 1787, two charity schools for boys and girls were separately established in Madras. So, but the curriculum was mostly limited to the acquisition of 3 R's, that was reading, writing, and arithmetic, and Christian's teachings. So, in 1781, Sir William Hastings, the first Governor General of India, established the Calcutta Madrasa for the cultivation of Arabic and Persian studies, and he also founded the Banaras Sanskrit College in 1791 to promote classical studies in Sanskrit. So, one of the prominent motive of establishing these institutions was to train Indian assistants to English judges in order to explain the principles of Hindu and Muslim laws. So, the Christian missionaries, started providing education to Indian masses in the beginning of the 18th century, but they were allowed to preach and teach in India only after the passage of the Charter Act of 1813, which actually committed the East India Company to allow Christian missionaries to carry on their educational activities in India. As the objectives of the Charter Act of 1813 were not clearly defined, the chart clause relating to the promotion of education of Indians led to differences of opinion between the classists and the Angelists. While the classists were keen on promoting education through Sanskrit, Arabic, and Persian, the Angelists wanted the English education to be given more prominence. So, Indian reformers, however, it must be mentioned that in this conflict, the potential of the mother tongue as medium of education was neglected, and even to this date, impact of this move is being felt in the Indian education system. Indian reformers such as Raja Ram Mohan Roy and others felt the need for a new type of education, and were of the view that the introduction of English education in India would lead the country towards an age of Renaissance. So, 1823, the Committee of Public Instructions was set up to give a shape. In 1823, the Committee of Public Instruction was set up to give a shape to the new education policy of the government and initiate steps for its implementation. So, the Angelicists and the Orientalist controversy had already taken deep roots by the middle of the 19th century. The Orientalists, who had a genuine love for Oriental culture, wanted that education must be imparted through the medium of classical languages such as Sanskrit, Arabic, or Persian. On the contrary, the Angelists find that the education had to be imparted through the medium of English, since they believe that modern language which the Indian desired could be imparted only through the medium of English. So, this controversy was dragged till the end of 1834. In fact, no education policy could be implemented during this period, and it was at this juncture that Lord T.B. Macaulay came to India as a president of the Committee of Public Instruction. He was a pro-Angelist and supported the education of the classes. He made a vigorous plea for spreading Western education through the medium of English. The charter in 1833, the British Parliament increased the total amount of money also, and since India had numerous education problems, and it was realized at the time of renewal of the charter in 1853, it was decided to formulate a clear education policy that would set a framework for creating a well laid out education system in India. Thus, it was being formed. It was later on realized, therefore, that a committee was to be set up to offer suggestions for the introduction of the educational reforms in India under the chairmanship of Charles Wood. So, the document which this committee prepared is popularly known as the Wood's Education Dispatch, and it had it has a lot of implications for the development of educational system in the century in the country. So, the Wood's Dispatch, which is a long document, deals with various aspects of educational reform in India. It also describes as a Magna Carta of English education in India, and it set forth a scheme of education far wider and more comprehensive that than anyone which had been suggested so far. So it enunciated the aim of education in India as the diffusion of arts, science, philosophy, and literature of Europe. It laid down the study of Indian language was to be encouraged, and that English language should be taught whenever there was a demand for it. Thus, English and Indian languages were to be used for the diffusion of European knowledge. And the most significant aspect of the Woods Dispatch was the decision to establish universities in India. So, the first university of modern India was established in Calcutta in 1857. Soon, universities were also established in Bombay and Madras, and then, in fact, in 1820 also, if I talk about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, also laid the foundation for the MAO College, which later turned to a great, Aligarh Muslim University, which came into an independent being in 1920. So, all these universities, because it paved the way for the establishment, and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, reformer, too, established the MAO College, and then which turned in 1820, and then in 1920 it became prominent as an Aligarh Muslim University. So then the Sargent Commission was set up in 1944, which was under the chairmanship of Sir John Sargent, to prepare a comprehensive report on the system of education in India. Its report was called the Sargent Scheme, or the report of the Sargent Commission on post-war education development. It was submitted to the British government of India in 1944, and this report paved the way for the future development of education system in the country. So, the British government's main agency for deciding the course that education system in India took in the pre-independence phase, it helped to establish throughout the country, a number of schools and colleges which turned out tens and thousands of educated Indians well versed in modern subjects. Though the main procedure, the main purpose was to produce, administrative machinery, clerks for administrative machinery. Nonetheless, that the Britishers did help in in introducing modern education in the country. Nehru's vision, when we talk about the post-independence phase, Nehru also had this envision, Nehru had this vision for education, and for him, local elites benefited from the British education system, and which eventually used to expel the colonizers. So, Nehru envisaged India as a secular democracy with the state level of the state-led communal economy. Education for all and industrial development was seen as a crucial tool to unite a country divided on the basis of wealth, caste, and religion, and formed cornerstones of the anti-imperial struggle. Following independence, school curriculum were thus imbued with the twin themes of inclusiveness and national pride, placing emphasis on the fact that India's different communities could live peacefully side by side as one nation. Then the legacies of this Nehruvian approach to education are considerable, perhaps, and most notable is the entrenchment of the pluralist, secularist perspective in the minds of the Indian people, and subsidized quality, quality higher education through institutions such as the IITs and IIMs formed a major contribution to the Nehruvian vision of self-reliant and modern Indian state, and now rank amongst the best higher education institutions in the world. In addition, policies of positive discrimination in education and employment furthered the case case for success by giving underprivileged social groups accessibility to quality education. It has been argued that while access for some marginalized communities continues to be limited, the upward mobility of a few Dalits and tribal household, resulting from positive discrimination in educational institutions and state patronage has created a role models that help democracy survive in India. Education initiatives in independent at the time after the Sargent Commission, there were no major commissions or reports in the British period. Even the Sargent Commission reports did not see the light of the day. Following the transfer of power, the Central Advisory Board of Education decided to set up two commissions, one to deal with the university education and the other to deal with the secondary education. Recognizing the fact that the requirements of independent India would be different, it became imminent that education system in India would be restructured. So this decision came at a time when the promises made to the people of in the field of education during the freedom struggles were to be implemented. So provision of free and compulsory education up to the age of 14 years was being debated in the Constituent Assembly, and these debates ultimately found expression in the directive principles of state policy of the Constitution of India. And the goal set for countries' educational policies was to work out a system of universal elementary education by 1960. So necessary changes were also affected in the system of secondary and higher education in keeping with the felt needs of the country. A new chapter in education policy began with India becoming independent. A number of problems and challenges, of course, had surfaced in the country because of the sheer diverse character of the Indian society. The government established education commissions in order to address these challenges and recommend comprehensive policies for education problems and also for the improvement of the education system in India. After independence, India adopted the constitution in 1950, and I also mentioned about what Nehru had envisaged regarding the education system in India. So education became the responsibility of both the state as well as the central governments. The constitution makers recognized that the stability and progress of the country, which adopts a democratic course, depends to a large extent on a well educated electorate. So that constitution not only emphasized the principle of equality of educational opportunity, but also the achievement of social justice through a policy of positive discrimination. So in independent India, education policies have been closely influenced by the Education Commission, which were set up from time to time. However, the three important commissions came into existence. First, the University Education Commission. This was the first commission to be in 1948, and this commission came into existence, be appointed in the independent India was under the chairmanship of Dr. S. Radhakrishnan to report on the status of the Indian universities, education, and suggest improvement and extensions that would be desirable to suit the present and future requirements of the country. So this commission aimed at Yes, so this commission had aimed at creating universities which would provide knowledge and wisdom for a comprehensive development of the personality. The main goal of establishing a university in a particular region was to make a higher education accessible to a large number of population, to a large sections of the society, irrespective of region, caste, religion, or gender. And this also proposed the reconstruction of education system in tune with the vision of the Indian Constitution. And the recommendation, then the Secondary Education Commission was established in 1952, and under the chairmanship of Dr. A. Lakshman Swamy Mudaliar, and this commission submitted its report to the government in 1953, and the report gave a broader view about the education problems of the Indians and proposed to increase efficiency of production. So the report of the commission suggested diversification of high schools courses and the establishment of multi-purpose high schools. It also recommended setting up of technical schools. So the recommendations of this commission occupied a very significant place in the development of secondary education in independent India, and most of the education have praised its recommendations for providing very practical and useful suggestions. They opined that this commission recommendations, uh, you know, uh, provide framework for, however, there were certain loopholes, or there were certain lacunas in this commission, that it did not provide a framework for the promotion of women's education. Then Indian Education Commission, which was came into existence in 1964-66 under the chairmanship of Dr. S. Kothari, popularly known as Kothari Commission, and it was entrusted with the task of dealing with all aspects and sectors of education, and to advise the government on the evolution of a national system of education. It is in accordance with the recommendations of this commission that the National Education Policy of 1968 was formulated. So, in fact, I would like to quote here that the Indian Education Commission, in its opening paragraphs, the report of the Kothari Commission of Education observed that the destiny of India is now being shaped in her classrooms in a world based on science and technology. It is education that determines the level of prosperity, welfare, and security of people. On the quality and number of persons coming out of schools and colleges will depend our success in the great enterprise of national reconstruction, whose principal objective is to raise the standard of living of our people. So, in the Commission's view, education had the power to work as a powerful instrument of social, economic, and political changes, and the educational objectives had to be released in terms of, or it should be aligned with the long term national aspirations. And this if these change educational, and if the changes is to be achieved, then it would be the only instrument that would bring about positive development in the country. So, the commission reviewed the development of education in India in the modern period, and particularly since independence, and came to the conclusion that Indian education system needs a drastic reconstruction, almost a revolution, to realize the constitutional goals and to meet the various problems faced by the country in different sectors. So, the comprehensive reconstruction, said the commission, has three aspects, that was the internal transformation, qualitative improvement, and the expansion of education facilities. However, there had been certain recommendations which has been given by the Kothari Commission, and for first was like education for modernization, national unity and literacy, drawing on Nehru's visions and articulating most of his key themes. The Kothari Commission was set up to formulate a coherent education policy for India, and according to this commission, education was intended to increase productivity, develop social and national unity, consolidate democracy, modernize the country, and develop social, moral, and spiritual values. And to achieve this, the main pillar of Indian education policy was to be free and compulsory education for all up till the age of 14 years. Other features included the development of languages, namely Hindi, Sanskrit, regional languages, and three language formula, equality of educational opportunities, regional, tribal, and gender imbalances needs to be addressed, and the development and prioritization of scientific education and research. The commission also emphasizes the need to eradicate illiteracy and provide adult education. And then India's curriculum has historically prioritized the study of mathematics and science rather than social science or arts. This has been actively promoted since the Kothari Commission, which argued that India's development needs were better met by the engineers and scientists than historians. The perception has remained that students only study social science or art subjects as a last resort, though recently commerce and economics have risen in future. Uh, there was certain constitutional framework related to the education. The Constitution of India, which was drafted in 1941 and came into force in 1950, initially placed education within the scope of the directive principles of state policy. However, recognizing the importance of education, it has been seen since been elevated to the status of a fundamental rights, demonstrating the evolving priority given to education in India. So, the right to education Article 21A, perhaps the most well-known constitutional provisions regarding education is Article 21A, which added by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act 2002, and this amendment made education a fundamental right for children up till from the age of 6 to 14 years. And the key features or the key important part of Article 21A, legal rights, as education of for children between the age of 6 to 14 is just not a policy matter but a legally enforceable right. Then state responsibility, the state is mandated to provide free and compulsory education to this age group, and this includes creating infrastructure, recruiting teachers and ensuring the necessary funds for education. Then Right to Education Act 2009, to implement Article 21A, the Right to Education Act was passed. The act details various aspects like school infrastructure, the pupil-teacher ratio and the admission process, ensuring a high standard of elementary education across the country. And before the introduction of Article 21A, the provision of education was only a directive principle under Article 45. However, it became evident that unless education was made a fundamental right, the goal of universal elementary education would remain unattainable. So, Article 21A therefore makes a significant shift in India's legal framework, reflecting the state's commitment to providing quality education to every child. Then Directive Principles of State Policies, Article 45, it before the 86th Amendment, of course, education was addressed under the Article 45 as one of the directive principles of state policy, and these principles served as a guideline for the state to follow when framing laws and policies through which they are enforceable, though they are not enforceable by any court. Nevertheless, they were important part of Article 45 under the DPSP was it directs the state to provide free and compulsory education for children until they complete the 14 years of age, and it placed responsibility of primary education on the state, but it did not have the binding force of law. So the remaining states could not be legally held accountable for failing to provide this education. And the failure to implement this article, although the constitution aimed to achieve free and compulsory education within 10 years of commencement, this goal was not realized very soon. Challenges such as inadequate funding, lack of infrastructure and poor governance delayed the achievement of universal elementary education. So, the failure of Article 45 led to the subsequent introduction of Article 21A and the Right to Education Act of 2009. However, there are certain concurrent list and education. The 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 again is a landmark in the constitutional history of Indian education, as it transferred education from the state list to the concurrent list, and this change gave both the center as well as the state government to the power to legislate on matters related to education. The key features of the 42nd Amendment was prior to this amendment, education was primarily a state subject. However, the need for national education reforms and a uniform policy led to its inclusion in the concurrent list. This shift has allowed for the creation of national education policies, enabling the central government to introduce uniform laws such as the Right to Education Act, curriculum standards and regulation for the universities. So, the inclusion of education in the concurrent list has ensured more cohesive and consistent education policies across India, promoting national unity in education. The fundamental duties and education Article 51A subset K. In addition to the rights enshrined in the Constitution, the 86th Amendment also introduced a corresponding fundamental duty related to the education. Article 51A K. This article mandates that parents or guardians provide educational opportunities for the children aged 6 to 14 years, and the provisions this provisions emphasizes that while the state guarantees education as a right, parents are also responsible for ensuring their children attend school. So, Article 51A subset K highlights the shared responsibility between the state and the citizens in achieving universal education. It reflects the Constitution's holistic approach towards education, both as a right and a duty. So, however, there had been free education campaigns in India, which talked about or which advocated about enrollment, increased enrollment, then enhanced literacy rate, accessibility to free education has significantly improved, which has resulted in higher literacy rate nationwide. And special programs for girl child or for girls education ensures equal opportunities, educational opportunities. Then educational, school upliftments, education empowers empowered children from marginalized communities to break the cycle of poverty. And of course, it has focused on a holistic development. This were the certain advantages of free education program. Then there had been successive occurrences of education policies starting from 1968, and then there was this draft policy on education 1979, national policy of education 1986, a program of action, national policy on education, in extension to national policy of education in 1986. There's a program of action, there was a review, there was a revision made in 1992 with in context of the policy of 1986. Then a Right to Education Act also came into existence, and then the National Education Policy of 2020. I will stop here. I will continue with the policy in my next class. Thank you.